Elias was a man living in the in-between. At 30, his life felt like a video stuck in a buffering loop. He worked as a late-shift dispatcher for a logistics company, sitting in a dim office from 6 p.m. until 4 a.m., watching glowing dots move across a digital map while his own life remained stationary. Every morning at sunrise, Elias would walk home through the city. He felt like a ghost. He saw the day people, the joggers with their fresh energy, the shopkeepers opening their doors with purpose, and the professionals in crisp shirts grabbing their first coffee. Elias, on the other hand, was heading for a darkened room to sleep behind heavy curtains until the sun went down again. The internal glitch. It wasn't that Elias was lazy. He worked 10-hour shifts and never missed a day. But his effort was maintenance work. It kept him alive, but it didn't help him grow. His bank account was a flat line, and his dreams of starting his own digital agency were gathering dust on a shelf. The breaking point didn't come with a bang. It came with a quiet realization. On a Tuesday morning, he stood on his balcony looking down at the street. He realized that for 3 years he had seen every sunrise, but he had never actually used one. He was awake when the world was quiet, yet he spent those hours reacting to other people's problems instead of building his own solutions. Hatched, the encounter at the bench. One morning, too restless to sleep, Elias sat on a park bench near a small pond. To his left sat an older woman, remarkably sharp and alert for 5:30 a.m., sketching in a leather-bound notebook. She wasn't just passing time, she was focused, her pencil moving with a precision that made Elias feel even more sluggish. "The light is best now," she said without looking up, "before the noise of the city distorts the colors." Elias sighed. "I'm just trying to stay awake long enough to fall asleep." The woman stopped sketching and looked at him. Her eyes were bright, devoid of the heaviness Elias felt. "Most people think the day starts when they clock in at work. They're wrong. The day is won or lost in the silence before the world demands your attention. You're awake, Elias, but you aren't conscious." She closed her notebook. "If you want to stop being a dot on someone else's map, you have to claim the dawn." The woman, who introduced herself as Elena, didn't offer a magic pill. She offered a blueprint. She explained that most people live in a state of reactive time, waking up to notifications, emails, and other people's demands. To break the loop, Elias had to switch to proactive time. "The world is a noisy broadcast," Elena said, tapping her notebook. "Between 5 a.m. and 7 a.m., the tower is down. No one is broadcasting. That is your only window to build your own signal." She outlined what she called the Dawn Protocol, a strict 3-layer system designed to rewire his brain and his bank account. The 3-layer system, Layer 1, the deep code, 5 a.m., 6 a.m. "This is the hour of the architect," Elena explained. "You don't check news. You don't clean your house. You spend 60 minutes on high-leverage skill acquisition. If Elias wanted his own agency, he needed to master the tools of the trade, coding, high-level design, or market psychology. This hour is for the work that creates your future, not the work that pays your current bills." Layer 2, the system calibration, 6 a.m., 6:30 a.m. Elena insisted that a sharp mind cannot run on a sluggish body. This was 30 minutes of high-intensity movement or a rhythmic walk. "You are flushing the cortisol from your system and forcing oxygen into your blood," she said. It wasn't about fitness in the aesthetic sense, it was about biological readiness. Layer 3, the strategic reset, 6:30 a.m. to 7 a.m. The final 30 minutes were for the map. Elias was to sit in silence, read something that expanded his perspective, and visualize the exact moves he would make during his actual workday. It was about moving from a dispatcher mindset to a director mindset, the law of the shutdown. "You cannot run a high-performance engine if you never let it cool down," Elena warned. The protocol had one non-negotiable requirement: the 9 p.m. digital sunset. At 9 p.m. all screens, phones, laptops, TVs had to go dark. This wasn't just about sleep, it was about protecting the pre-dawn momentum. If you win the night, you've already won half the morning. The 21-day wall. Elena looked Elias directly in the eyes. "The first week, your body will scream. It will tell you that you're tired, that this is pointless, and that you should just go back to sleep. That is the old Elias trying to protect his comfort. You have to treat that voice like a glitch in the software. Ignore it. If you can make it to day 21, the glitch disappears. If you make it to day 90, you become the architect. Elias looked at his watch. It was nearly 6:30 a.m. For the first time, he didn't feel like a ghost heading into a dark room. He felt like a soldier who had just been handed his orders. The first Monday of the Dawn Protocol felt like a physical assault. When the alarm cut through the silence at 5 a.m., Elias didn't feel inspired. He felt crushed. His room was cold. His head was heavy from the late shift fog, and every muscle in his body pleaded with him to hit snooze. Just 15 minutes, his mind whispered. You worked 10 hours. You earned the rest. But then he remembered Elena's voice. The old Elias is trying to protect his comfort. He didn't think. He simply threw his legs over the side of the bed and stood up. The floor was freezing, a sharp reminder that the ordinary world was now behind him. The hour of the architect. Elias sat at his small desk. Instead of scrolling through social media or checking work messages, he opened a browser tab he'd bookmarked. Advanced Logistics and Supply Chain Automation. For 60 minutes, he forced his tired brain to ingest data. He studied how AI was beginning to replace manual dispatching, the very job he currently held. It was frustrating. The concepts were dense and his focus wavered, but he kept his phone in the kitchen, out of reach. By 6 a.m., he had finished one module. It wasn't a victory yet, but it was a deposit. The friction at the terminal. By 3 p.m. that afternoon, the real test began. Elias arrived at the logistics hub for his usual shift. His supervisor, a man named Marcus, who thrived on chaos and loud orders, was already stressed. Elias, we've got 3 trucks sidelined the north zone and the tracking system is lagging. Get on the phones and fix it manually, Marcus barked. Usually, Elias would dive into the chaos, stressed and reactive. But today, something was different. Because he had spent his strategic reset at 6:30 a.m. visualizing his workday, he didn't panic. He saw the lag not as a crisis, but as a technical bottleneck he had actually read about that morning. Give me 10 minutes, Marcus, Elias said calmly. I think I can bypass the lag through the server subroute. Marcus scoffed. Just do your job, Elias. Don't try to be an engineer. The internal choice. The old Elias would have shrunk back and spent the next 6 hours on the phone, exhausted and angry. But the protocol Elias felt a flicker of defiance. He realized that Marcus wanted him to stay a dot on the map because it made Marcus's job easier. That night, as the clock hit 9 p.m. during a lull in his shift, Elias felt the urge to watch a movie on his tablet to stay awake. Instead, he remembered the digital sunset. He put the tablet away and sat in the dim light of the dispatch office, mentally preparing for the 5 a.m. wake-up that was now only 8 hours away. He was tired, yes, but for the first time in 3 years, he wasn't bored. By day 45, the 21-day wall was a distant memory. The 5 a.m. alarm no longer felt like an alarm. It felt like a signal. Elias had moved past the basic tutorials and was now deep into data visualization and predictive logistics. His small desk was covered in sketches of a more efficient way to move those dots on the map. Then came the night of the readout. It was 2 a.m. at the logistics hub. A massive tropical storm had stalled over the northern transit corridor. 3 of the company's largest freight ships were blind, and the automated routing system, the one Marcus always complained about, simply crashed. The screens turned red. The panic of the old guard. Marcus was shouting into 3 different phones. I don't care if the GPS is down. Use the radio. Get them to the nearest port. But the radio channels were clogged with static. The room smelled of burnt coffee and desperation. We're going to lose $4 million in cargo tonight, Marcus groaned, slamming his headset onto the desk. The system is dead. We're just waiting for the disaster to happen. The architect's entry. Elias stood up. For the last 6 weeks during his hour of the architect, he hadn't just been studying. He had been building a shadow map on a private cloud server, a simplified manual override script he'd designed using the very tools Marcus had mocked. Marcus, Elias said, his voice steady, I can reroute the north zone. I've mapped the secondary coastal frequencies. Marcus didn't even look up. Elias, I told you before, don't play engineer. We're in a crisis. The system is already down, Marcus, Elias countered, stepping toward the main terminal. We're already losing the cargo. Let me run the script. Something in Elias's eyes, a clarity born from 45 days of disciplined dawn sessions, made Marcus pause. He stepped aside. You have 5 minutes before I call the regional director and tell him we've failed. The shadow map. Elias's fingers moved across the keyboard with a precision he didn't know he possessed. He wasn't guessing. He was executing a plan he had visualized dozens of times during his strategic reset sessions. He bypassed the crashed main server and linked the freight GPS units directly to his manual shadow map. One by one, the red dots on the screen turned green. He didn't just find the ports. He calculated a weather gap route that saved 6 hours of fuel. The room went silent. The readout was over. The morning after at 6 a.m., as Elias was preparing to head home, a black car pulled into the hub. Out stepped Sarah Vance, the regional director. She didn't go to Marcus's office. She went straight to the dispatch floor, looking at the logs. Who ran the manual override at 2:15 a.m., she asked. Marcus pointed a shaking finger at Elias. He did. He had some kind of private script ready. Sarah looked at Elias. She didn't see a tired late-shift worker. She saw a man who was wide awake while the rest of the company was asleep. That script saved us more than just cargo, Elias. It showed us a massive flaw in our infrastructure. Where did you learn to code for logistics? Elias looked at the clock. It was almost sunrise. Between 5 and 7 in the morning, he said simply. Sarah smiled. Be in my office at 10 a.m. We need to talk about a new position in the strategy department. And Elias, get some sleep. Elias smiled back. I'll see you at 10, but I've already had my rest. Day 90 didn't arrive with a trophy or a ceremony. It arrived with the same familiar, cool silence of 5 a.m. But as Elias sat at his new mahogany desk in the high-rise strategy department, the view was different. He wasn't looking at glowing dots on a terminal anymore. He was looking at the actual sunrise reflecting off the city's glass towers. His life had undergone a hard reset. The late-shift exhaustion was gone, replaced by a rhythmic, powerful energy. He was no longer a dispatcher reacting to crises. He was a senior logistics architect, designing the very systems that kept the city moving. His salary had tripled, but that wasn't the biggest change. The biggest change was the man staring back at him in the mirror, someone with sharp eyes and a steady hand. The return to the bench. On the final Saturday of his 90-day protocol, Elias didn't go to the office. He walked back to the same park bench where it had all begun. The pond was still, and the air smelled of damp earth and morning dew. Elena was there, her leather-bound notebook open, her pencil scratching rhythmically against the paper. She didn't look up as he sat down, but a small smile played on her lips. "You look heavier," she remarked, still sketching. Elias laughed. "Heavier? I've lost 15 pounds from the morning walks." "Not physical weight," Elena said, finally closing her book. "Weight of character. Presence. You've stopped floating like a ghost, Elias. You've anchored yourself in the world." The ripple effect. Elias looked out at the water. "I thought this was about a job, about fixing my bank account, but it wasn't. The promotion was just a side effect." "Exactly," Elena nodded. "The world rewards people who are awake. When you claimed those 2 hours, you told the universe that you were the one in charge of your time. Once you master your time, the world begins to align with your intent. It's not magic, it's momentum." Elias realized that his discipline had bled into everything. He was a better son, calling his parents with genuine energy. He was a better friend, no longer too tired to engage. He had even started a small weekend workshop, teaching other late-shift workers how to use the Dawn Protocol to bridge the gap to their own dreams. The final challenge. As the sun fully crested the horizon, turning the park into a sea of gold, Elena stood up to leave. She handed him a small blank leather notebook, identical to hers. 90 days is the foundation, Elias, but a foundation without a building is just a hole in the ground. What will you build in the next 1,000 hours? Elias took the notebook. He felt the weight of the empty pages, not as a burden, but as an opportunity. He watched Elena walk away, disappearing into the crowd of day people who were only just beginning to stir. He opened the first page and wrote 3 words in bold black ink: "The Architect's Log." He didn't need an alarm clock anymore. He was the one who woke the world up. So here's the truth. Elias didn't change his life overnight. He didn't win the lottery. He didn't get lucky. He just made one decision: to stop giving his best hours to everything and everyone else and start investing them in himself. The scary part is, there's nothing special about Elias, which means there's nothing stopping you either. Right now, you already have the same 24 hours, the same quiet mornings, the same opportunity. The only question is, what are you doing with them? So here's the challenge. For the next 21 days, wake just a little earlier. No phone, no distractions, just 1 hour, focused on building something that your future self will thank you for. It won't feel good at first. You'll be tired, you'll want to quit, but that's the moment that matters most. Because that's where the old version of you tries to take control again. Don't let it. Stay with it. Push through it. And you might just realize that the life you've been waiting for has been waiting for you every single morning. Starting tomorrow. If this story meant something to you, then don't just watch it. Do something with it. Because most people, they feel inspired for a moment and then go right back to the same routine. Don't be most people. If you're serious about changing your life, then start by changing what you do tomorrow morning. And if you're taking on that challenge, let me know in the comments. I want to see who's actually ready to become the architect of their own life. And if you want more stories like this, stories that don't just entertain you, but push you to think, to act, to grow, then hit subscribe. Because this channel is for people who are done watching life happen and are ready to take control of it. I'll see you in the next one.